Hello everyone, welcome to the pursuit of health, wealth and happiness. My name is Nay if you're new. My boyfriend Cody and I have been living in Bristol in the UK for the last 8 years, and in 2022 we bought our first house, a 1900 Victorian terrace, which we've been renovating and decorating as part of our journey towards wealth. If you're unfamiliar with Bristol or not from the UK, ever since COVID and people could work from home, the house prices in Bristol have shot up because people were able to commute to places like London. I'm excited to share today that we have hit our 2-year renoversary, probably YouTube's slowest house renovation. And so for today's video, I want to break down room by room exactly what we've done to renovate and decorate this space. And with that said, if you have any renovation, DIY, decoration ideas, comment down below because there's so much left to do. If you're new to my channel and you love all things health, wealth and happiness as well as renovation and you're not subscribed, please subscribe down below so you never miss another video. I think let's just begin and let's start in the hallway. So when we first moved in, the space had laminate flooring, the same as the dining room, and white lining paper on the walls. Before we picked up the keys, my grand plans for this space were to do some paneling on the walls and really showcase that sort of period property features and decorations that you can't really do in other types of housing, and also to restore the original wood floors that we were also planning to do in the living room and the dining room. But unfortunately, unlike these two rooms which were completed successfully, the quality of the floorboards were not really what we were after in the hallway, and so it was not possible to restore the floors. And then on top of that, as I've also mentioned in some previous videos about the hallway and the flooring, actually when you open the door and saw original wood flooring, it didn't really give that cozy, homey vibe that I was after. It kind of looked very, very derelict and abandoned, and I kind of put that down to it not being sort of well furnished and being that sort of warm, cozy space. I mean, it's just a room where people walk through to get somewhere. So yeah, it just wasn't what I had imagined, and then also not being able to panel because the walls were wonky. So I had to basically come up with a brand new plan. So in the end, we ended up putting in porcelain Victorian tiles. I painted the skirting, and then Dad and Cody wallpapered the space. We're really happy with how it looks now. It looks very homey, a bit unique with the Victorian tiles. As I said before, it was laminate flooring, which is just standard in most houses. So now you can say, again, this is unique to a Victorian or a period property. When else do you find Victorian tiles? In a Victorian house. And whilst I appreciate the Victorian tiles are porcelain and looks quite cold, I think because of the warmth of the wallpaper, the space doesn't look as cold as the flooring actually is. And I suppose in time you would probably put some nice pictures on the wall, make it look a little bit more lived in, which we just haven't quite got to that point yet. And as you can see, we're now beginning to style and decorate this space. We started off by buying this large IKEA Hemnes shoe cabinet, which is super popular. This not only hides our shoes, but also provides a surface for candles, key drops, little art prints, maybe a little mirror. This is where you can start to show off your personality and start making the space look more homey. We've been here for 2 years, and just as an example, we haven't even put any pictures on the wall. And it's been 2 years. And then another little thing that we've done is we just put some hooks on the back of the interior door. And whilst it does block the light, it's just much more practical because it means that we can take off our coats immediately without using any of that floor space. And so in terms of renovation, that's the main bulk of that room done. But there are little things that we could do to just sort of finish and make it look a bit more complete. So for instance, there's a couple of beams on the shelf, which I think would look super nice if you could, whether they are real wood, but you could even make it look like a faux wood. Things like that would draw your eye up, but also break that blocky wallpaper color and just, again, a little bit more texture, a little bit different to just solely wallpaper from floor to ceiling. So that's the hallway entryway. Comment down below if you have any other ideas, and let's move on to the living room. The living room is one of my favorite rooms in the house because it gets such good lighting in the evening. This was one of the rooms we finished first. When we moved in, there was quite an ugly, dirty beige carpet and the walls were, again, plain white. We painted this room Farrow and Bull French grey, which is such a good colour. We also added some paneling in line with the top of the window frame to just break up that blocky color. And we also restored the original wood floors by sanding and staining. And along the way, we've also just been furnishing and slowly decorating, things like buying the sofas. And our most recent addition, which I love and fits perfectly in one of the nooks to the left of the chimney, is Cody bought me a record player and a cabinet for Christmas. And again, we've got those little knickknacks on the shelves that we're slowly collecting. And one thing I've been on an absolute mission to find unsuccessfully is I just really want to find a nice vintage cabinet or drawers. It's a little bit gappy, so you've got the door and you've got nothing until you get to the shelves, which also have nothing. And then when you look to the left of the living room, it's quite furniture heavy, so it almost feels, I guess, would it be unbalanced? Although if we're actually talking about finishing a room, what I would love to do, had there not be so much left to do in the house, and I've said it so many times throughout my videos and in this channel, I would love to put in a log burner. So the dining room is very similar in terms of what we've done, but slightly different, as you can see. I use this room a lot. It's not maybe my favorite room, but I think probably because this room is really associated with work for me. So for instance, I work here. This is my standing desk where I work. I obviously also film and edit here. Although what is super fun is this corner, which is my DIY home bar. So in this room, we also restored the floors. We painted it a slightly darker color because we knew that we were also going to paint the walls a slightly darker color. This is Farrow & Ball's Hague Blue. It's such a nice color, and the floors, like the living room, also came out so well. And of course, one big difference between the dining room and the living room, our naked brick chimney wall. I'm just so pleased how this turned out. And if you look back on the old videos, it just looked so plain and boring, and I just think, why would you want a plain boring wall when you can have a wall like this? And so again, we were super lucky that this room didn't really need huge renovations. It was aesthetics, and then we've just collected a couple pieces of furniture along the way. So for instance, this cabinet is from a second-hand shop. The shelves were already here. We added a beam, really affordable. The dining table we already had. And then, as I mentioned, my standing desk, I just bought the contraption from Amazon. And then luckily, Mum and Dad had renovated their kitchen and had spare oak, which I stole, which fits perfectly, not only on the table, but in the nook. So arguably the kitchen is the next biggest thing we need to work on. Not only do we have the kitchen, but there's also another downstairs bathroom, both of which we haven't touched in the entire 2 years. When we first got the keys, our grand plans were to knock the interior wall in between that bathroom and the kitchen and make a giant kitchen with an island and double doors at the end that would go to the garden and seal off the downstairs toilet and sink. However, since coming back to reality, we've learned that actually that job is so expensive and not necessarily something that would add the value that we were hoping for. As I mentioned, house prices in Bristol are just insane now, and houses sell for the same price whether you've done the work or not. So if you were to spend 10, 15, 20 grand putting in a new kitchen, it won't add 20, 30 grand. So now it's just a case of how can we make it more attractive and how can we renovate it and decorate it without it being a waste of our time. For instance, imagine putting in a new kitchen to then only find that the new owners are going to rip the whole thing out, knock the wall down, knock the bathroom down, and make a snug and kitchen. So it's just things like that that you need to consider. And what's interesting, we've got, we're a bit friendly with a couple of the neighbors. Quite a few people on this street, one, knock the wall down between the kitchen and the dining room. Some have also even knocked the wall from the hallway and made a big open plan. The next people will likely want to do something a bit more structural and make it maybe more open planned. So we need to give it a nice DIY budget makeover, a sensible renovation that's budget friendly, but is also going to have that sort of maximum impact that we're looking for. Okay, so before we move upstairs, which will be super quick because we have also barely touched it, let's talk about the garden. So the garden, which was also in a terrible state when we moved in, had some okay features to work with. It had nice fencing 3/4 of the way round, a flower bed, and a stony area at the bottom, which we use for barbecues. And there was this ugly, unsightly, grey concrete piece of depression, which we've since chiseled and painted white. However, in my opinion, I do think it's too white. I've not done the best job. I tried to whitewash it and make it look like this, and I should have just got Cody to do it because he did the wall upstairs in our master room and this room, and they've turned out really nice. So I think it's a bit too white, but at this point I just think chuck a load of flowers on and it still looks better than it did before. The biggest thing though that we did was completely lift all of the grass, and we worked to make the ground flat and more even, and my dad helped us too. Most recently I also painted the ugly grey wall. We'd like to eventually add a fence topper if it's cheap, because it just looks, in my opinion, quite odd having 6-foot fences all the way around and then a stubby ugly wall where you can see the neighbour and the neighbour and the neighbour. And then another thing that I did last year was just paint this horrible brown shed forest green. It's not the biggest shed, but since learned that sheds are very expensive, and we honestly only use it to store our bikes and a lawnmower. And I don't really think we'll do too much more to the garden, especially if you're thinking of moving. You're almost styling and decorating and landscaping a really nice garden that you potentially can't take much with you. And again, it doesn't really add value. I think as long as it's quite a functional and spacious garden that has a couple of nice elements, you kind of don't really necessarily want to go over the top and do this really grand garden when it's not for you. Hang in there, let's go upstairs. I think it's also worth noting that the stairs and the landing have probably had the most work. When we moved in, there was an ugly dentist waiting room type of carpet, which we ripped up the first day and added a simple beige, roughly textured carpet. There is nothing worse, in my opinion, than carpet that's been dented where there's been a lot of footfall. So we just tried to find a carpet that had the most texture and it was a bit more durable. Given that this is such a spacious area, I thought initially we would put in big wardrobes for extra storage, but we just don't need it. But for now, it's my spin studio. So the bathroom we haven't touched. If we were staying, I suppose we would replace the whole suite, add some really nice colorful tiles, but for now, it's okay. It's a clean white color. We've added a bit of storage. Sometimes I'm tempted to paint it and to change the flooring. I'm not sure. Comment down below what you think we should do. The second room, unfortunately, isn't big enough to have guests. So Cody has this room as his working from home space, and he also teaches guitar. So he has lessons in here, and I never go in here. So let's move on to the final room, the master bedroom. The room originally had an ugly grey dented dirty carpet with an awful burgundy color on the walls, and the chimney, like downstairs, was also covered up. I think initially, I admit, I went on a bit of a wood floor restoration spree, and like the living room, dining room, hallway, I thought, oh, master room needs to be really grand, let's also do the wood floors in here too. However, this turned out to be a bad decision, so we ended up getting brand new creamy beigey carpet put in, which now that it's here is super soft and it looks so clean. And again, because downstairs has no carpet, I think actually it's quite nice to have carpet upstairs. And like the wall in the dining room, we also whitewashed the bricks. We've also put a board up halfway, and we just need to get a beam just to finish that little area. And as I mentioned before, the room was such a horrible color, and whilst I couldn't really think of a color immediately, and I still don't really know what color to paint it, for now my dad came in and just painted it all white, so it's just a bit of a blank canvas. The furniture's also white, and white walls and a creamy carpet, so it's a little bit white on white on white. And I'm also really surprised we've not really touched it, because you spend so much time in your bedroom. And I also, in the evenings, like to just chill on the bed. As I said, the sun comes in, and there's just nothing nicer than lying on your bed with the sun on you, a fan's on, and you're reading a book or you're watching a YouTube video. Just the sense of space, the high ceilings. It's a very spacious room, big windows. So I do really want to finish the room before we move, and I feel like we're not really going to enjoy it for that long. I really would like to do a feature wall. I want to panel a wall, seeing as I haven't been able to panel properly anywhere else. So please do comment down below what you think we should do with this space. And that is it. That is our house and a summary of our 2 years of renovating and decorating. And it's been quite nice to not have done anything drastic, and most of the work that we've done has been super doable. The only time we've paid someone is to actually pay to do the tiling. So between me, Cody, and my dad, we've done a lot of the work ourselves, which is fun. So we've of course got quite a few bits left to do. So as I mentioned, please comment down below some DIY, decoration, renovation tips, what you think we should do, because we really need to get a move on, and we also need to get some estate agents in to, one, tell us how much money we've made so far and where the money could be greatest. Want to obviously maximize the value. Thank you so much if you've made it this far. As I mentioned, this channel is about all things health, wealth, and happiness, as well as renovation. So if that's the kind of content you enjoy watching and you're not subscribed, please subscribe down below so you never miss another video. And I'll see you in my next one. Bye.